Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're streaming in from. My name is Sharon. I'm currently an operations specialist at Google and a graduate candidate student at USC. I'm so excited and honored to be the host of this conversation on behalf of Management Cues during this wonderful AAPI Heritage Month. And I'm so excited to be here. I'm actually really nervous, as you can tell. I'm excited to be here, especially with you, someone who has been a mentor, a role model, and a force in my life, Dr. Myra Austin, CEO and founder of Management Cues. Dr. Austin, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I am just super excited to be able to share our journey together. Especially in such a special month, AAPI, to me holds a special place for many reasons. A lot of our colleagues and our team members at Management Cues are from AAPI Heritage, and I celebrate their creativity and their genius, just like I do yours. And so I can't wait to share more of our story with everybody.
Oh, thank you. Let's get started and talk a little bit about how we met. I'll start. I'll just say, like, this really started about 4 years ago, right at the job interview. It always starts with the job interview, right? You hired me, and I became your direct report, and you were my COO. And at that specific moment in my career, I was incredibly eager, hungry to grow, to learn, and to just completely immerse myself. And honestly, I remember choosing that position in that company because of you. And I just felt like you had so much knowledge. You truly embodied what a good leader is. And it was the first time in my life that I was actually seeing someone who genuinely lived and breathed servant leadership, as they say all the time. And so you lived it, and I was constantly inspired just being in your presence. And there was like this instant connection between us. And I don't know if you remember, but our disc reports back in the day even
Yeah.
showed that we were incredibly compatible. So I still remember that in the back of my head to this day. So the trust was there from day one, and it was just a powerful relationship. So let's start with what, or can you
Yeah.
share a little bit about what you remember?
Yes. It was a special moment, and I remember I was experiencing a special time in my life. So I was going through some health challenges, and I was looking for an operations coordinator or support that would fill in the gaps. But I knew how challenging it was going to be because I wasn't necessarily at 100% at that time. And I knew that I needed a go-getter. I knew that I needed somebody with super high energy, and that I needed somebody that wasn't going to be afraid to roll up their sleeves. And boy, Sharon showed up, and she showed up like I haven't seen anybody show up in a while. And you were so prepared. You were so prepared. You were so high energy. And I think that there was an authenticity about you that I really admired. And of course, that was before really even knowing you and knowing your tremendous journey and the things that I'm sure we'll share on this discussion. But I did feel that synergy. I remember the team was really excited, but they were also a little scared, which I think comes with the powerhouse. I remember them. You were so prepared that it kind of set the tone. And I remember thinking to myself, this is what it's like when somebody sets the bar,
Oh.
right? So yeah, I know.
I just remember that like people were scared because there was two of us. It just felt like I came in and hit the ground running, and it was like, oh, two people now that is like driving force and driving change. And so that was nerve-wracking for a lot of people, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think anytime you have a grouping of any powerhouse individuals, the energy transcends, right? And I think you start to see impact. And again, whether it's intentional or not, you start to see the bar being raised. And I think that that's what creates momentum in the workplace, but also in life, when we're looking to make a difference, when we're looking to care about things. And so, yeah, that meeting moment, I remember it. I remember how excited I was, and I remember that I felt a sense of comfort. And for me, it was a really hard time. I was letting go of something. I was dealing with neurological issues, which is really difficult. And I was losing sometimes physical ability. And for somebody who's an operations leader, who's a mother, who most of the time feels in control, those moments are moments that are very vulnerable. But I think there are also moments that allow us to hand over the baton, right? And I very much had to do that whether I was comfortable or not, because the time had come, right? And so I do remember thinking in my head, God, I wish I was at 100% to give her 100% of me.
Yeah.
um but you just took it and ran. And I remember for the part of the onboarding and transitioning into that environment, you largely were self-motivated and self-propelled. So I'd love for you to share, like, how did you just sync up and go, because that was a challenge to not have somebody that you wanted to work with closely, uh be in a sort of life transition, right? So what was that like for you?
I want to take a step back and say that I actually, for the beginning part, I didn't know. I was not aware of the challenges that you were going through because I think you put on a really good, for lack of a better word, front. I
Yeah.
think that you were trying to show how strong you were, and you were so strong dealing with everything that you were going through behind the scenes. And I just feel like you were prepared regardless to set me up for success. Like to me, you were giving 100% already, even though I didn't know that it was not your 100%. So for me, like you had all the papers, you set up my plan, my like 30, 60, 90-day plan. You already had so much knowledge, like when you were giving us training and such. I felt like I was like in a whole new world. I was like fully absorbed. I was like, oh wow, like I'm learning so much because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And it's so interesting that when we look back, you weren't giving 100%, but to me, I was like, I'm seeing 200%, honestly. And I think that ties into how knowledgeable you were and how much you were already, you just had so much under your belt that like even though you weren't to you giving your full potential, I saw it no matter what.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, and it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better about that time. So as we worked together, we started to get to know all of the things we had in common,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it's always been super important to establish a mentee mentor relationship, especially when you have in the workforce, young professionals who have talent, but also have put a lot of effort to get to where they or are representative of communities that don't necessarily get support all the way through, right? We're kind of in this disposition. I of course, it was and am part of that group as well. So tell us a little bit more about like your professional journey, like getting to the point where we met, and then kind of walking into where you're at today.
Yeah, at that point, I was just a fresh college grad, undergrad, college grad. But during my time at undergrad, I held several internships, all in different industries, because I was still at a point where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, and how I wanted to show up in the world. So I was just hungry. I was in multiple industries, and COVID had just hit, right, the year
Yes.
before. And so at that point, I was still figuring it out, but I knew I tried what skincare. I was already in manufacturing. I also tried logistics. I was in the food industry. I was just trying, like, life was a buffet to me. So I was trying a little
Yeah.
bit of everything. And then when I was applying to that role, I was like, oh, operations, let's try that. And it's in the health and wellness space, which it's a complete unknown to me. So for me, that motivation was already there. I was still just so eager, and I was actually looking for a mentor. Like I'm always reading these books about powerhouse women, about people's journey and biographies. And my home is actually filled with so many magazines and of women and their journeys. And they always say you have to have a mentor, someone to guide you that will propel you in the future. And for me, I wasn't outwardly looking for one because I feel like that time just has to come. It just has to be that right person and that right time where it's instant and that connection forms. And I was just lucky enough to have been chosen for that interview, and you were the person interviewing me. And so I just feel like it just connected. Our fates were just intertwined at that moment. And then um I lost my train of thought, but I actually wanted to ask you, can you
Yeah.
share what inspired you to mentor emerging professionals like me?
Yeah, so I think it's my own journey, right? Of feeling like I wasn't sure how to navigate my career path early on. I didn't have a lot of support along the way, and so a lot of it was me learning the hard way. And I think if I would have had a little bit of guidance, throughout my educational experience, all the way from elementary all the way through college, and then in the professional career environment, I feel like I would have gotten there to wherever there was a lot faster without a lot of the growing difficulties along the way. And so for me, it's just being present and helping somebody get there faster, particularly if I already know how difficult it is to get out there if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you're marginalized for whatever reason, if it's an economic status, right? That's holding you back or has made things challenging. I think that for me, that is what played into now my company management cues is this understanding and overwhelming feeling of knowing what it's like to constantly be the underdog and constantly fight for a place and for the talent to be displayed or acknowledged, right? And so I was committed, and I'm still committed to finding people in the workforce who have a spark. And you definitely had a spark, and you were by no means the only person that had a spark in that environment. But what I think I find interesting, and I think that this is part of the story, and for those of you listening to us out there, if this is you and you're in the in between, take action, right? Because here's what's interesting about the environment that we were in. You took the mentorship and went somewhere with it, and you saw past the job itself and that moment in time with that employer, which that can be seasonal, that can be temporary, but the mentorship doesn't have to be. And so it's up to you, right? After both of our journeys with that employer ended, um, we reconnected. We were intentional, we were purposeful. And since that moment, we have both continued to succeed. And it's that reliance on what does my next step look like? I have a mentor. Let me go to my mentor,
Right.
right? So I think part of why be a mentor is recognizing that, at least from my perspective, I'm extending a hand, and it's whoever reaches back out that gets to leverage the experience, the talent, the success, or the continuance, right? Um, People tend to stop at the employer, and the employer is not the end all. What are your thoughts about that? Because you were there with us. You saw me work with everybody in a very similar way, yet there's only a handful of you that actually have leveraged the mentorship.
Yes, I think bummer for those that didn't continue, but I definitely, your words are absolutely true for me. Like I came in knowing that you were someone that you were a resource that I was going to go to for the rest of my life. I knew that from the get-go.
Oh,
I just knew that, yes. Because that, honestly, that comfort that you were talking about, that trust, that personal relationship that we built, it doesn't come very often, especially for, I believe, women. I just feel like it was, for me, it was like a once in a lifetime. It was the first time that I felt that kind of experience, relationship connection with someone. So for me, I was like, I knew it in my heart that I wanted to forever nurture and maintain that connection. So with you giving me the skill set to kind of branch out and fly away for the journey that we're currently on, I just felt like I knew. And for anyone who has a mentor that you feel like you lost that connection and you want to reach back out, I would say it's never too late. I
Yeah.
feel like as time goes on, yes, we all get busy. We're all on our own paths, just like me and you on separate paths at different times in our life. But I think that it's okay to just reach back out one day and say, "Oh, happy New Year," or "Happy birthday. I miss you. Can we reconnect over chat or coffee?"
Yeah.
The smallest things go a long way. That's what I've realized about adulting
Yes. Yes. So true. So true.
and networking, like just the smallest text. And everyone's always on their phones anyway. So just the smallest text. And if you don't get a response, I don't take it the wrong way. I'm like, oh, they're busy. I could follow up. I could reach out
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. There's so many ways to just build connections nowadays that it's okay if the relationship died for a little bit. But for us, bringing it back to us, it never died. Let's just make that clear.
No,
It never
it was
died.
alive and well.
Yes. It was forever there. And I just think that I do want to share that along these last 4 years, like I you were always present and we would do check-ins, we would grab lunch, and we were continuously trying to keep the connection strong. And I love that for us. And I remember
Yeah.
even the last year I was contemplating getting my master's degree. You were the one to write my letter of recommendation, and you've just consistently been an amazing mentor, giving me the space to live my life while you are living yours. And you're just being my biggest cheerleader, supporting me along the way. And I'm just a big believer in fate. So I think that
Yeah.
it definitely brought us together, and we've both made the conscious choice. We've both made the
Yeah.
conscious choice to nurture and maintain that connection.
Yeah. And I think you said something that's really, really amazing. Like your side of the story, like what you're getting out of the mentorship and how you see it as something that's empowering you, right? And on my end as a mentor, I get inspired by my mentees. So a lot of what we do at Management Cues, you never know, that exchange of value is just so powerful in mentorship. I can say this specifically about Sharon, like, the Management Cues planner that I designed has components of the experiences that I had with her, which is why she received the first copy that we actually ever put out into print. So like these small things, right? She may not know every detail of along the way. And I could say the same thing about other mentees that I have out there. You're embedded in what we're doing. That's how powerful the influence is. And I myself, I continue to look for mentors. I think it's a powerful thing to leverage. And now I have, I don't know, like 6 or 7 people that I go to when I feel lost, when I need guidance, when I need somebody to speak in a room for me on my behalf. It's such a powerful thing, you know. I hope you know, Sharon, like if you needed me to say, say something about me to somebody, I would know exactly what to say, and it would be authentic and it would be honest, and it would be my honor to support, right? And so I think having that, we miss out on that when we don't intentionally seek mentorship or mentor.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that one thing that at the current company that I'm currently working at, they do always tell us to network no matter what. Even though you're not trying, always put your best foot forward and put just 15 minutes a week or every month on a calendar and try to connect with someone, especially in this virtual world that we live in. So that's the power of connecting. And you never know, it could be anyone in your life and they could be your mentor.
Absolutely. And you'd be surprised how many people out there are willing to mentor because they've experienced certain things in on their journey, right? In their journey. And it changes you, it builds character, but it also puts you in a position where you understand how difficult the road ahead might be.
Mhm.
right? And for us as women, as women of color, it's hard and it's paved with challenges, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And so being able to reach out to each other, it makes a difference.
Sorry, I'm trying to-
You're trying to gather your thoughts.
Yes,
So
I'm trying to go.
so let's go on to the next phase because we're almost at the end of wrapping up here our journey, right? And understanding kind of our connection with each other here. Why do you think it's important for people to hear your story, right? In your journey as you've moved through?
I think that as someone who being Chinese American in a global tech company, I've learned that your identity is your strength and it's not something to minimize. I was very fortunate. I grew up in an area in California where I see Chinese Americans everywhere. So it's never like I felt out of place, but I feel like I never really understood my culture. I never wanted to own up to being Chinese American, not going to lie. I never took that value of being who I was. But as I'm getting older, and now that I see that representation is a very big thing that you should take responsibility and be who you are, and it's something to be proud of. Seeing, I think that it's something that I'm trying to embody and learn about every single day. So seeing leaders like you unapologetically represent your heritage showed me how to stand in my power. And I'm trying to learn that, trying to step into that and show up in the world like that every single day, whether it's with life, with work, with my relationships, professional relationships, with school. So I think it's just a time for me to reflect, reclaim, and I honestly want to share that with everybody else. And I want everyone else who's listening to take that call to action and
Yes.
reflect and reclaim for yourself, especially in this beautiful month of
Yeah.
API month.
Yeah, and I think what you said is so powerful and it's so true. And I think it's raw, but it is authentic and true. I think that when we have heritage from somewhere else around the world, right? We are here in the US and we're constantly assimilating for obvious reasons. We're adopting norms, we're integrating, we're learning English, or our parents are if we were born here, right? There's all these experiences that are associated with what does our sense of self look like? And I think what you said is so spot on. And I can tell you that for me, it was understanding what that looked like. And even now with my students, as I teach, undergrad and graduate level higher education, I share with them that I always felt like I had one foot in one place and another foot in another. And I think it's because of that, because we're processing norms, we're assimilating who we are, we're finding pride in who we are. And I don't know if you had the same experience as a child, but as a child, of Guatemalan parents, my parents were key on me learning English, right? And learning it well and doing these things. And so I spent a lot of my childhood translating, which later lent, right, to public speaking in some other areas. But the reality is that that assimilation has a price, and we have to be aware of it in order to not lose our sense of self in it, for whatever purpose it lends. So I think that what you're saying is so incredibly honest, and I think we have to pause and think about that. Do we know who we are? Do we take pride in the genius that comes to the table because of that, because of our heritage, right? Because of our shared experiences, because of our lens, right? Our lens can only come from us, because we're the ones who are bringing it to the table. So,
So
with that
relatable.
said, yeah, with that
Actually,
said,
I have a question. Was there, at what point in time do you remember being like, oh, wait a second, this is to my advantage. I should own this. Was there a point of time that you
there
remember
was.
like no more one foot in, one foot out? Can you share that experience?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was when I was 25. So I was 25. I was still working in the legal industry. And I started to leverage the fact that I was bilingual. I started to leverage my understanding because I ended up doing work in bodily injury, employment law. special education law, and I did a little bit of property law. So I was working in those environments, and I started to realize that my ability to understand either the plaintiff or the defendant's disposition allowed us to work that case better, right? Each time. Where there were gaps, sometimes where the attorneys or the legal team couldn't relate to the plaintiff or the defendant. It's just not a known or shared experience, right? And that happens so often in the workforce where we have people who maybe have gone a traditional path, maybe have lived a privileged life, maybe had just never been outside of the country, right? There's so many reasons for these gaps in knowledge. And so I started to realize that my experiences actually lent to the overall outcome. And it's interesting that you caught that and asked the question, because I think part of what makes management cues special right now is that we operate in the gap, meaning we focus on what the managers are experiencing. And now we've quantified and qualified it and had it scientifically tested to show ridiculous results. And I think that it's not my genius. It's understanding the human being and the experience that they're having. And all of that, in my opinion, comes from that realization of, oh, my perspective does matter.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So we're almost at the end of our discussion today. So, the last thing that I wanted us to kind of chat about and share with our audience, was what do you think about or what have your experiences been around being invested in, right? Like I think that there's a lot of research out there, right, showing that at least when it comes to venture capital for Latinas specifically, there's only about 1% accessible out there. So like investing in what we do, investing in women like you and me, happens sparingly, unfortunately. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
I
no
was
worries.
trying to
So,
formulate my thoughts.
yeah, no, take your time. So, for women of color, right? Women who are trying to make it either professionally or as entrepreneurs, there's not a lot of access to support or capital or funding, right? What are your thoughts around that? And has that impacted your own professional experience at all?
Oh, that's why I think it's so critical to support women founders. I don't think there's enough funding, and especially the 1% statistic that you just gave. It's crazy that in 2025, that is still the stat. So that's why I think more than ever, we need to stand up for women and get representation backed by resources. So, Dr. Myra, can you please tell us about this campaign and this investment?
Yeah, so the campaign that Sharon is referring to is our campaign. We're crowdfunding right now with I Fund Women by Honeycomb Credit. And so what's really cool about this organization is that they back up women. They train us, they prepare us, they assign us amazing coaches to help us get there, right? And so I actually was assigned an amazing coach, Orion. If you're out there, shout out to you, girl. She's also the founder of Black Travel Box, and is an amazing talent. And so she represents us too, right? The women that are out there, who aren't necessarily, who are lacking funding in order to bring their brilliance to the table. And so our crowdfunding effort right now is for $40,000. And so we're trying to raise it to just level up and scale into the next phase of what we need to do for our scientifically proven model. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you for sharing that. And I actually have a few questions about this campaign. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, what are the key milestones or deliverables you hope to achieve with this funding?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been laboring the business, right, for a minute, and we're finally at a position to scale, right? So we've served, I would say, hundreds of clients now, and we're looking to just take it to the next level. And so for us, what that means is some freedom to try a different type of marketing. We do things largely organically right now, so I'd like a more formal campaign out there to see what our reach and response would be like. I'm also looking to more formally go into state and federal contracting. And so that's the second milestone. And then lastly, I'm looking to bring two more people onto my team and just get them started. And so our team right now is growing, but this would help us accelerate that process. So that's what the money is for. And it would give us a boost in real time.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea. But that's amazing. And for people who are just logging on or do not have a lot of knowledge about what crowdfunding is, do you have a plan or what is like the potential long-term vision after beyond this campaign? Can you share a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, thank you. So the crowdfunding campaign is really just to give us a boost. We're already operating nationally. We just started. And so we're looking to continue to make things accessible. I love to tinker, right? As an operations person, I love to break things apart, figure them out, and restructure them. So I would love to integrate AI into what we're doing. I would like to expand on our performance tracking experiences that we create. I would love to continue to partner with Neuron. So Suli, shout
Oh,
out to you if you're out there. Neuron is the third party group of neuroscientists and neuroengineers that tested and proved the validity of our methodology. So they went out there and worked with one of our clients for about a year and did some pretty amazing testing that was able to prove that what we do has results like no other training company out there. So I think that encompasses a little bit of where I see the vision, right? Like I want to make it a more sophisticated experience. I want to make it more accessible to everybody. I want to hire and create jobs for people like you and me, right? Who are amazingly talented and need a platform, need an opportunity. And lastly, I want managers to love what they do and not be resentful of their roles and be burnt out in the workforce and succeed.
that's amazing. You are not just paving the way, you're building an entirely new road for everyone and the future, the next generation, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting to watch and it's exciting to experience. Some of the feedback that we've gotten, it honestly, it humbles me and it almost brings me to tears sometimes because, we hear things like, I never realized this is what it should be like, or I've never received any training, or I wouldn't have been able to succeed without knowing this, right? Or experiencing this, or having the awakening of recognizing what it looks like to really build the capacity to lead in management. I think the other thing that I see that to me is very impactful is because we're training and tracking performance as our participants are learning, they get to see their gaps in real time. So imagine knowing exactly where you're falling short and what you need to focus on in the moment. There is no other training experience like that moves past content, knowledge, and theory, right? This is about here's where my shortcomings are and where I need to take action. And I think that is an awakening.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So with that, did you have anything else to share, Dr. Walker?
I think that's it. I mean, I think that this is just encompassing, barely touching on how powerful our connection is, right? And that it has brought us to this day. So I'll take this moment to just share and highlight Sharon, right? I feel like she's tremendously courageous, and she's out there really experimenting and doing things that may be scary for others, but she is part of the 1 to 3% in my opinion. I mean, I had the opportunity to work with her and mentor her, and from the e-commerce model in health and wellness that we were both working in, she went from there to Google. She went from Google to USC. And so, one thing that I've told Sharon is I would love for her to join my team at a future date whenever she's ready. But this is what happens, right? This is what happens with these kinds of connections. And so, I think the closing thoughts that I would want to leave everybody with is to see past the employer when you meet talented people or people that you want to learn from, to kindle and rekindle, like Sharon said. Don't be afraid to touch back with people if you've lost connection. I know I had somebody from the same employer reach out to me 2 months ago and say, hey, I really appreciated some of the things you shared with me while we worked there. Do you have a minute to have a call? I want to share what I'm doing now. Right. And talking with him was rewarding. And he then went on to land a position he really wanted. So I think that don't think that because you haven't that you can't. I think that that's a really great lesson that came from Sharon's thoughts and her experiences. And then lastly, it's important for us to invest in one another. And don't focus on the size of your contribution because that's not necessarily what's important. I think what's important is that you contribute, acknowledge, or share, period. I know that for me, having learned how to structure this crowdfunding campaign, and I've stretched myself and gotten uncomfortable and reached out to people in ways I haven't before. Um, I've learned that it's not the size of the contribution, it's the fact that you're contributing and that you're saying, I see the need. These women deserve to be celebrated. They deserve a chance to help at a bigger level, more than what they've already done. Right. I think that that's what's important. And I shared with a family member recently. She said, oh, I'm kind of on a budget. I've got things going on. And I said, it's fine. Then share. Nothing's limiting you from the share. If $5, $10, if that's too much to contribute, I get it. We're strapped. There's a lot happening in the world, and maybe we're in that position. You know what? Do five and forever be recorded in history as being somebody who funded something that was meaningful. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be management cues. But the point is, take an action to show what the stance is, because I think that that's what AAPI Heritage Month is all about. That's what supporting women of color means. It means at least raising your hand or raising your voice and saying, I see you. So that would be what I would leave everybody with.
I love that. I I don't know if you can tell, I'm just sitting here in awe listening to you. I feel inspired and empowered as always with a smile on my face.
All
And
right,
for
Sharon.
me,
Well, you can go ahead and close us out. Take us home.
for my closing thought, what you were speaking about, and one thing that I do try to live by is when you were highlighting me, thank you for all that, by the way, is that the answer is always no unless you try. No
Yeah.
matter what you're doing, what you're pursuing, if it's trying to build a relationship with a mentor, like if you don't take that step, that just be a little bit more courageous, take that step, that call to action and ask, send that text, send that ping, reach out, or try to go for your MBA, just apply. It only takes one step. But that step could change your entire trajectory of your life. And for me, I think that the answer will always be no unless you try. You can always try and fail and get back up, but you still have to try in everything in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll leave the audience with this. Just remember that your story matters. Your culture is an asset. Be proud of who you are. I know it's a lot of words to just say that, but to actually be it and embody it takes time, it takes work. But one can, if you really want to, one can take the time and the energy to be that and be who you are and truly find the value in yourself. And you have every right to lead in all aspects of your life. So let's keep lifting each other up as we climb.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you, Sharon. You did a wonderful job. Thank you for sharing this space with me. And we'll leave you all with those thoughts. Thank you so much for joining. And until next time, continue to celebrate those around you. Their stories matter. Continue to share your own. Bye,
Thank you for
everybody.
having me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Bye, everyone.